Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, April 7th, called to order at 6:38 p.m. First item is discussion and review of proposed amendments to the sewer use regulations, second read. You can come on up, Pete, if you want. I'm sure we'll have some questions along the way with one of these. Brian, other than the updated ATM, that's the only changes, right, from
Correct.
the packet?
Yep.
Okay. If either of you have any comments or questions on it, feel
I'm
free to start.
good with the red lines. It's just the question about the schedules and fees, if we had any information about that.
The only thing that I could find for fees was like what towns are basing off water usage, which really wouldn't pertain to us at this time.
You're talking about usage fees.
Right, and your connection fees, what we charge seems to be in line with most.
So you're not finding any municipalities who are not who are charging in a different way other than water use?
For the usage fees, no, they're pretty much based on water consumption.
Given that, do you have any thoughts or proposals on how we might, because it's not apples to apples? What do our oranges look like, I guess is my question.
I sent out a memo last week. I think you all received it. Basically, that was just my thoughts and ideas come about it just by starting with a flat fee, something that could be adjusted by the units. So say there's a house with apartments or an apartment complex, you can make adjustments from there. I think that would be, because half the town's on water, the other half isn't, that would be fair across the board. Start off with a flat fee. Depends what you all wanted to, if you decide to do it, what you would want to charge.
Were you looking for, was there a recommendation, Jim, or just a method? Or, I think he's rereading it, but if you had something, if you want, while he's.
So as far as finding a rate, if we were to, set one, because we don't have one, is there a way to look at the current usage of people on town water to get what your, to use that as a basis or as a standard for per unit? So if you had a two-family, what's the water usage? Divide that by 2 for that family. What's the average of the usage per family, per unit across all users of water? And determine, as any other town that has all, sewer based off of water usage, what would that average be? How would you parse that out? And then use that as your flat rate to parse that out across all users for wastewater. It's not, you can't tie it to actual usage because you have people that aren't using it, so that
Right.
are using the sewer. But if you use that as a mechanism to say, what is the average household using for water? Therefore, we know we can anticipate what your usage is going out, into the sewer system, and therefore we can get some sort of flat rate fee. But it's not just an arbitrary.
It would be much higher than what I threw out there as an example, just so everybody's aware. We can figure that out.
Well, I'm just wondering where it would align, so you have some comparison. So if we were to turn around and say the average user of our water system,
Mhm.
public water system in Erving, uses X number. That is what it is. That's your rate that you're using.
Sure.
And if you use the model that almost all municipalities that I know of that charge for wastewater, that do it as a portion of the water that they're paying, that they're using, if we use that same model and say, and you figure out what the average is per household. Does that make
But
sense?
Isn't that the same as dividing by, unless we just, it's split for commercial or something else?
Yeah.
Because if you're just gonna say the average rate is the same for 600 households, then just divide it by 600. Because
Sure.
it's the same, I guess it's the same exercise unless you're weighting them somehow. Because there's no variation if you're gonna do an average across, for all households, single households.
The thing that would be different,
Yeah.
Scott, which I think you may find some people not agreeing with that process would be, some houses are a family of 5, some are just 2.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's variances on that, and I'm not saying that the rate has to go with what the average is. What I'm
Right.
saying is we don't have a number to speak of.
Okay,
So we need some number to start with, because it's always like, well, what should our rate be? And I'm just throwing darts at a board at this point, saying I have no idea. $25. I could throw numbers out, but I have no clue what it would be.
no, I can do that, I can get you that number.
That number, at least for an example, to say, here's all the households, and you could start with all the actual usage.
Mhm.
Here's our households, here's the usage. We have the water bills, we know what the usage would be, and
Sure.
if we use the formula that most towns use, here's what all of the users would have paid. And we know what the, typical household size is. We have all that demographic information.
Okay,
And then from there, make an informed decision on, is there a rate that sort of meets this somewhere? I'm not saying an average works, because you'll have winners and losers across the board. And I'm not saying we have to go
Exactly.
top end either,
sure,
Maybe it's the low end of that rate. If the average is X, it's, half of that. It's more than what we have now. It's more than what we're doing now, which is 0. So just somewhere to start, because we keep talking about rates, but I have not been able to put my head around, like, where do we even start? And I think starting with what would it look like if we use the same formula that other towns use, but we only have a smaller sample. We only have, 600 users.
okay,
Well, that's kind of where I thought you were driving with it, is even we could say, we might say, come up with our average household user. If you are a resident of the average municipality in our area, this is what your bill would be. Now, we might say, maybe that does align with us, or we could say, if you were the average household in that municipality, it would be this. This is where we're at.
Correct. But,
and even-
but you have to do that number,
Right.
figure
You
out
need
what
the
our
comp
average,
to-
you need
to
a comp.
start.
You need a comp. So we have
Okay.
to start somewhere.
yeah, I can get you that information.
'Cause I just think you might find out that based on the comps that we get for other municipalities, what the rates are that transit into the bills that go out. I'm not saying that we want to maximize that and we want to match that or exceed that. Maybe it's one of those selling points of saying, we've never charged for this and we are going to start charging. And maybe we're below that median that goes out to any other municipality, which is what we typically do. Everything is, we
Right.
charge less for
Right.
everything.
Right.
Right now, we're charging the most the most difference we can, 0.
Little bites, not big bites.
Yeah.
Right,
To the question about the regulations and Schedule B, I think is what started this conversation. If we use the water regs as the example, the actual per 1,000 gallon consumption rate is not dictated in the regulation. It's just set that it will be set annually by the water commissioners. So I guess my question is, how would you like to approach at least the capacity to be able to do this in the sewer regs? And I guess the second question is, are you looking for this information specifically on a potential model for a use rate for FY27? Or are you looking for something sooner?
Oh, I can't imagine it would be 26.
Because at this point, town meeting will have happened.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I guess I would, you put together some proposal there. I guess what is the goal of this rate too? Is it is it to help fund capital stabilization within the enterprise fund? Like, what is the purpose? Because if it's to offset the entire operating cost, that is going to be a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not something we're going to do
That's not
in
ta-
26.
No,
That's not
I'll
attainable.
move.
And I don't,
Yeah,
right?
that's not attainable. And
So,
I'm not,
so
and
I
I'm
guess
not proposing
I'm
that.
not saying we should or shouldn't start implementing some kind of rate. I guess I'm just what are we trying to achieve with that?
Right.
So that whether that's used in how we back into what the rate becomes, and whether it's flat or whether it's adjusted by household size or units or some value. What are we trying to get toward, or what is the purpose of that rate in addition to the operating cost in the tax base? So, or is it meant to offset and reduce that? There's a lot of different pieces here, and I know that finance have brought it up in the and maybe capital in some of the joint meetings. So, I think because there's a lot to this, and it's new, and it's not something we have, and it's going to be a little more of a non-traditional model, if you will. It's not going to happen quickly. I think if we adopt similar language that says we can establish and set a rate, when we do and what it will be can be a work in progress, even if the regs are adopted.
Yep.
We can always update the regs at another time too.
Exactly.
Whether that's mid-year for a new fiscal year, whatever that looks like. I don't think it's something that we'll have in place in the next 3 months.
Thank you.
That's not a
Agreed.
I was
reality.
getting nervous.
No,
Okay, no,
agreed.
no, no.
I wasn't.
We might be
trying to-
getting really in the weeds tonight talking about it, but it's not because we think we're ready to do something, right?
No,
Good,
no,
good,
no.
good.
That was more of setting a base of why we're
Right.
asking for it.
Sure.
Not so much of that we're ready to move on it and enact it.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
Good.
I need that foundational information first. To answer your question about the purpose, to me it was that can fluctuate year to year of whether it's to offset operating or it's for a standardized purpose of capital improvement, enhancing our ability for future capital improvements. I think it can be both. I think that the use of those funds fall under the purview of, this body.
Of course.
It may change from year to year based on, the needs. But I know what you're saying is that we should have some sort of idea. Both of those are equally as viable for each other about the use of that money.
Yeah, I guess I don't mean it in terms of like we're dedicating the sewer rates to do X, but more of we are going to incorporate additional sewer rates to do for the purposes
X, Y,
of
X, Y, and Z. And
right,
put all of it in there.
but also to help define what are we trying to achieve annually, or what is
Yeah.
the goal over time of that rate, so that we know what we're trying to move toward in terms of what the number should be, whether it's in year one or it's over a multi-year plan to kind of get to a goal. Like we know there's the whole I'm gonna draw a blank, the assessment of all the infrastructure, the
Asset management plan?
yeah, there we go, thank you,
AMP.
the AMP.
AMP.
There's the AMP, and there's a lot in there, and that's going to be a lot of capital funding. And so, are we looking at ways that we help to, in addition to the operating and not just depleting, the wastewater retained earnings every year, without any way to replenish it? This is helping do that. That's kind of what I'm getting at. What is a philosophy to help define a number? Same thing we talk about with capital, but how do they define a plan and what we're trying to do there?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think an arbitrary rate doesn't. I think we know we have costs and we have things that we need, so that's not a horrible thing. But I think if we can start building why and what's that for, it helps define what are we going to charge and in totality, and what does that mean in a monthly or annual rate per person or per household? So
Got it.
it's more what I meant. And the more of one-time rate fees you're saying are competitive or similar to around the area?
Yeah, yes.
Other comments or questions on the red line?
No, I was largely satisfied with the red line corrections. No new suggestions.
The sewer, extension.
That's how you read
Is that
my
where
mind.
you- okay.
That was my sigh.
Okay,
That was my
say
sigh.
that one
I was
is,
like,
is
let's
one that
not
definitely
gloss over that. We need to talk about that as well.
absolutely.
Um,
Please.
So thank you, Brian, for finding that possible language to look at. It reads fine. Where do we see this being embedded?
Right.
Yeah, and I'm
The
not
exact
asking
question.
you to answer that. It's just sort of throwing it out there for the board and for my own sanity of going, where do we embed this now? And that's a great template to start from. And there clearly should be some changes, just to make sure that it really hits everything we want.
I did not yet have a suggestion as to what subsection maybe it falls under,
Yeah, I was trying to look back through all the different articles and sections.
but I'm happy to make a recommendation if that's helpful. If you think this is an okay starting point.
Would it fit into under general provisions? Is that?
Other than that, or 4 with permits, but can I be permitted to put in my own line? Or extend the public line?
Unless you want it to be its own section.
I mean,
That
it-
was
it
going to be
could
mine,
be.
is to create its own.
I can live with that.
Yeah, it is it's a very specific
Right.
task that we're talking about.
Well, we reference 314 CMR 7, Massachusetts Sewer System Extension and Connection Permit Program. Well, we have a permit section, but maybe we just have a sewer system extension.
Section.
I mean, ties to that language, and we don't need to reinvent it.
Yep.
It's consistent.
Okay.
Maybe that lands at a new 3 or a new 4. Before permits. I would think permits go after
Yep.
it because it impacts what language we put in permits, or at least in theory.
And I'll just renumber after that.
I would think so.
Okay.
See any reason?
Yeah.
I can put that in, renumber.
I mean, general regulations, extensions, permits, maybe. I don't know if that makes sense in terms of flow. What you guys want to see?
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't.
Okay.
And send it back to you in red line so you can see what it looks like for your next meeting.
Yeah, you referenced sewer commission.
I did. I was just rereading it as we were talking about it, and I saw.
When I read it the first time, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's wastewater is why it's referenced under the select board as opposed to the water commissioners. The
Right.
sewer commissioner, the sewer commission sort of was a
Fulfilled that
holdover.
role.
Other municipalities have one.
Correct.
Right.
We do not.
Correct.
Right.
But I will make that correction as well.
Good catch.
In the context, what is a lateral, Pete? Of a
The lateral for sewer,
yes.
basically like the stub lines that go out to feed, to connect to a house.
Okay.
Those are the laterals.
But so that was part of my question. So sewer would be the main or is it all encompassing? So like
It's-
if I look on
It's
in the
main.
proposed kind of extension piece there, construction all sewers, extensions, and laterals. So sewers encompasses the extensions and the laterals, right? Because
Correct.
that's everything.
Yep.
Okay.
But the house connection is not ours.
Correct, from the house to the main. Laterals were put in, so then once, it's, usually what we do is once the line is in and connected up and running, the homeowner's responsible from the house to the tie-in at the main.
But I'm just thinking, so in that language that you proposed, that talks about extensions as well as laterals, it references the select board approving them. And does that language contradict some of the permit stuff around connections for down below? I just want to go back and read that again.
It may.
Versus water superintendent versus, so maybe
So
just an early edit recommendation might be to, when you bring that down to its own section, maybe focus on the extension piece and take out laterals and maybe general sewer reference, or, you know, clear that it's an extension of the main line of the sewer, or something, language that kind of makes it clear that this is not as broadly as every lateral or every, you know, every tie-in for a single home into the main. That's not the purpose of that section. This is more infrastructure extension.
but you do want the board to be the approving body for any type of extension of the sewer system, not a
Yes.
connection.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think that's
That's
the
what I-
differentiation, is like a
Okay.
mainline extension is, I mean, the wastewater superintendent and the board obviously, but the board ultimately taking on that ownership responsibility costs,
Right,
adding it to our system
right.
and approving that.
As opposed to,
A normal connection where it's going by already falls under the,
right,
you know,
right.
the wastewater superintendent's authority. So that's just the distinction there, and teasing those out as we build out that language.
It may just be putting in like a one-line subsection under this new heading that just says that service connections from the main to a structure are handled under the
Section, whatever.
wastewater superintendent C section blank.
Yep.
And just redirect them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Or this section does not apply to service lines. And
Right, and this
Oh,
is
oh,
strictly
yeah.
for
Yep.
extension of main line.
Just as we're trying to clean up language, I'm,
Yep.
you know, thinking of that too, because
Good
it
point.
is a differentiation between what is approved by who.
Got it.
So, I had a question on page 3 of the redlined copy. What was sub I? So there's some language about changing the titles in that section, and then it was struck.
It's moved down to
moved.
UU or OO.
Am I just missing where,
because
how
it
far
changed-
down it went?
You changed it
Yeah,
to
it's way
superintendent.
down.
Oh, because it's alphabetical.
Yeah.
Okay,
Alphabetical.
all right, I'm like
Yeah.
going, did I miss where that
You
came
know, I
back?
did the
Okay,
same thing, and I
right,
got all
right.
the way down to the S's. And it's
There it
in
is, yep, okay.
Yep.
It's like,
And it was so far apart, I forgot about it by the time I got there.
And there were
I
over
was still looking for it.
100 places where it was director.
I noticed that there was a,
So there's a
lot,
lot of
of
changes.
directors that you caught.
Though there are several directors that are referring to the EPA and DEP, so those stayed.
Yeah.
So if anybody sees another director, those should be to those two agencies.
Yeah.
But yes.
Do we really? Oh, okay. Do we really need to number our definitions or letter them?
I was wondering the same thing.
More of just bullets?
Or
Like
just a
it's just
bullet.
titles?
This, your current draft or your current approved regulation has, these are their numbering systems. We
Okay.
can remove that if you'd like.
Are other policies that we have, are the definitions numbered? And we don't have to answer it tonight, but just maybe to reference
I'll
that.
double check.
And given there's so many and we're getting into double O, it starts getting a little, and I'm not sure the value there, right? Because it's a definition list, so we can say sludge, it's alphabetical, right? We don't necessarily need to go, you know, it's KK or whatever. And
True.
oh, it is KK. Wow.
I
How did they pull
will
that off?
review your other regulations
Holy-
and see what you did in those ones.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll
and
keep it
maybe it
consistent.
just jumps out because there's so many,
Yeah.
and we don't necessarily
So-
always have them, but
Yeah, and it could become problematic, like I'm looking at what is now JJ has JJ and then sub A. So you could get into later where JJA is an actual new one.
Right.
Yeah.
We could go deep into the woods here.
Okay.
Maybe we should.
I think if we need to number underneath the definition, I can see that value,
Right.
like A1 under authorized representative, but to have authorized representative as B is probably unnecessary.
Okay.
But again, consistency is good too, so if it's everywhere else too, then maybe we revisit it next time.
Okay.
And
Sure, we can change all those too.
take another stab at it. Exactly. I mean, or at least take another look
You
at
got
it.
3 of them in front of you right now. Let's see if you can do all of them at the same time. But I will double check.
Believe that was,
You know, I read down through, I think you captured everything we talked about on the 31st.
Okay. Whoever drafted these a decade ago, I think largely they're in good form.
Yeah.
So
have we, maybe I missed it in the memo, do we have feedback from council at all on this, or do we not send it yet until we get it further?
this one hadn't gotten to council yet. Water and road opening had been sent to council.
Okay.
So if you're ready, I can send this one to council. Or do you want to look at it one more time before this goes to council?
I'm thinking we may want to get through the extension section, like another read at that before
Okay.
we,
Yeah.
that makes sense?
Yeah.
So we'll do another
Well-
read and then likely after that.
Perfect.
I was gonna say, for us to review it, it's free.
And then if we change it, it's still free.
It's still free. Yeah. Let's
Yes.
do it.
Or
let's do it that-
relatively.
Let's do it that way.
You got it.
Anything else, Pete, from your side as we've gone through and that you see or kind of want to revisit that we haven't already discussed?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah. And we've got a little bit of time before our next meeting, so there should be plenty of time to work on the at
Right.
least the
Any
base
nuance.
numbers for the schedules and give us a starting point to work off of.
While we're on the sewer, I did speak with Ty and Bond today. They were hoping to get it done by the end of the day to update the maps for the
At the end of the day today?
They were hoping to, but I didn't hear from
Excellent.
them, so hopefully by the end of the week. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Excellent. So in terms of actions for next time, other than the added section and just small, definition discussion, the charges and fees, I think we're looking at some language around a rate-based fee in the future or something, some language similar to water that says that can happen.
Right.
But then fees in terms of like connections and all that needs to be fully defined, right, into Schedule B. Is that the intent, right? So,
That's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Pete, I think you had said you have some good data on that side of it, right? On what fees should be in terms of like doing it, like is it our permit fees aren't even in here yet, right?
I think the permit fees, everything are in pretty good alignment with other towns.
But they're not in the schedule in the draft,
No,
right? So we need to get that draft,
Okay.
that schedule built out with
Okay.
fees for things like permits, things that are not tied to like a rate pay,
okay,
but all the other fees that would be required with connections and things like that that are defined, we should get them defined in there
okay.
so that we can look at that draft Schedule B, like kind of populate it as well. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anything else that's needed for next review? Okay, that's that one. Don't go anywhere. We got more.
No, that's what I was hoping you'd say that while I'm here.
Sure. Review and discuss proposed amendments to the Water Department regulations. Third read.
The only question that jumped out is, I know Michelle Turner said she wanted to double check some things. Have you had any update from that yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
So this week she was out. She wasn't in today, so she'll be back tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll get it in front of her and have a update for you well in advance of your next meeting.
A lot of things are due in her office, so I'm sure she was busy.
Yeah,
Yes.
Totally understand.
absolutely. Outside of the stuff that I know she wanted to weigh in on, the rest of it were the changes that we talked about, the no survey, all the changes from the 31st. I didn't have any concern.
Anything further on licensure? That was the one I know we had in there that you were looking into it still? Or
So,
what, with taps?
yep, I went around and double checked with a couple of municipalities, and what they basically do, which I think would be a good thing for me to do, start a file system with the people that we're allowing to do excavation that residents would hire, make sure they get a photocopy of their hoister's license, their certificate of liability, their insurance binder, and things like that. As far as those who would do the tap, would just make sure they have all their certificates and insurance also. Get their insurance binders. I mean, that's pretty much what they're doing, and I think that's what a lot of them are developing their list of allowed contractors from.
So you would propose to have an allowed list and just build it out as, is that what I'm hearing?
Right, or just have our own records so we know who, that we, like, there's one contractor I know, I was talking to Turner's Falls, and, they just reminded the contractor, we need a copy of every year get a new copy of their certificate of insurance, and every couple of years they get their copy of their hoister license. So you're both covering that they're licensed to run the equipment, their insurance to do the digging, and as far as tapping goes, most people hire out, and EJP is the one that most people use. That's who we've used, and I've gotten copies of their certificates, so I can keep them on file, I'm sure, unless you want them at the town hall. It's up to you. And if they're not in the files, we don't have them on the list of files, then we don't allow them to do it.
So without reinventing the wheel, like some of the places you've researched, we have a checklist of, say, there's a vendor who's not currently on the list of approved vendors, and they were to inquire, I'd like to be added to your
Sure.
list, and you need to provide
Right, A, B, C, yep, exactly.
through JJ.
So you're saying kinda-
process.
Or what?
We could treat it like we do the relicensing of other, I'm not calling this license, but take that same approach where there's prescribed information that we need in order to put somebody on this list. And there's certain documents, licensure, insurance rates, things of that nature that they need to provide as proof to be able to be added to the list. We could make that an annual process,
Right, it's similar to like the septic haulers.
similar to the septic haulers.
There's a list, they have to come and apply, they pay a fee to Betsy and at Betsy's office, and then there's a allowed list of septic haulers that can dump at our facilities.
So they pay a fee annually and provide all the proper renewed documents and everything to become, and then if everything's in order, are they automatically on the list, or do you approve them today? Or what's
For the
practice?
For the septic haulers,
Yeah.
they're the same guys, so I don't have to approve the list, Betsy knows them.
The Board of Health approves the
Board of
list.
Health approves that, right?
Thank you.
Okay, somebody approves.
Somebody must have approved it at some point, and whether that was
Right.
practice or process, I don't know,
But
but
it's an annual
just
process.
something. So there's an annual process, okay. So they're paying the fee and getting vetted or re-vetted or at least
Right.
validated every year, okay.
So we would do something similar in this.
So you're thinking we start somewhere and then,
Right.
I think to your point, if someone wants to get added or someone wants to use someone new, there needs to be a process for, okay, if you furnish these things,
Right.
whether that comes with a fee or not, maybe it does.
Yeah, I was gonna
Depends
say,
on
I
how
mean,
much
I
work
don't-
it is, you know?
I think if the fee is for the purpose of there's time on task that staff have to do in order to vet and,
Yeah.
and get them on the list, sure, keep it,
Something
Nominal,
reasonable.
just
No, it's not gonna, I wouldn't imagine it's an exorbitant fee, but I'm just, as our friend Dan would say, for the thousands of people out there, there may be somebody who would be interested in getting on this list.
Right.
For how
And
do
there should
you,
be a standardized process
Yeah.
where,
yeah.
just so that there isn't any even suggestion that,
right.
you know, that it's.
Anyone can join if they follow the process,
yeah.
right?
Right.
I agree.
It's not cloistered in any way, or
Right.
Do you want for your next meeting to see outline of a proposal of how we would manage that process? With the
Would-
checklist that
Would
Selectman
be
Lloyd
good.
mentioned?
I mean, yeah, it would be good to have and know.
if you have the time to do it.
And then,
Yeah, we got
or
3
Pete,
weeks.
Pete can, also just defining what is it, you know, and what kind of fee would you tie to it? And then we can start with an empty list, and when someone wants to have something done, they can come bring it. I mean, if we're hiring it, then we should do the same thing. We should add them to the list and vet them if we're hiring someone to do something for a municipal building.
Right.
But assuming we're gonna have a fee and a process to become on the list, whether that's, you know, someone who needs service line work or connection and needs to hire someone to do it, and that's how the first one gets added, or there are, you know, contractors out there who want to be added. To your point, they have a process to be added. And then on an annual basis, if there's a fee on the renewal or not, or if that's a matter of a notification out that they need to, you know, refresh any documents that have expired or will expire in that year, and what that looks like. Just so the maintenance of it and the adding, right, and how it starts.
Okay.
Make sense?
Excellent.
Question related to the temporary water connection request, section 380-53. It's been renumbered. The only change we had in there was we took out the word Erving for water department. However, it references, I think it ties to the request, I think previously, I think Michelle is the one that said, do we want to put as part of our Schedule B with fees, the temporary, the fees we attribute to temporary water service. The hydrant fees, in reading that language a little more, I'm not a fan of from time to time. Hydrant fees as set from time to time
Lawyer language there? From
yeah,
time to time?
I just don't like it. I know we've gotten away from that before, and I think is there a way to sort of reformulate this section, the temporary water connection request? It talks about the rates being held at the town clerk's office, but if we could just embed them into Schedule B, then they're there.
We can embed them in Schedule B if you'd like them, but they should also be on
They
file with the
they should
town
be
clerk.
on file as well, but I think having them in both locations, and one still references that they're also in Schedule B, but they're also on file. Because that's the master, list at the town clerk's office that has all schedules for
So-
fees.
Do you want me and Pete to go through the regulation and find any fee that's mentioned, replace that with a reference to Schedule B, and move that fee to Schedule B?
It's cleaner.
I think it should, yeah.
It's cleaner, any
Yep.
fee. But just the language, this paragraph, I feel bad that I'm on third read and I'm only now catching it. It does not read well.
Nope. Okay, so we'll work on revisions to section 53.
Yeah, I'm
Move
the
all
one that brought it up,
fees.
so I'll come up with some stuff and I'll get it to you
On the temporary.
on the temporary water connection request. Yeah.
Pete and I can work
So-
on it. You guys have enough to go.
So we have it in there twice, and I was curious the difference too. I was like flipping back and forth, because is it 49 is also a temporary water connection with the fee? The fee is in 38049. References to the requests are in 38053. Are they really two separate sections? Am I misreading it? Because you started talking about it having from time to time, and I'm going, no, there's a rate embedded in there, which was your other comment. And so I'm thinking we have a little bit of overlap there. And the language is probably two different takes at it, and we end up with them as two different bullets, and ended up in that redundant there. So if you want to take a look at maybe 38049 and 38053 with, and town clerk or tax collector, and what makes sense on how, how to clean that language up and
Okay.
consolidate it into one. Whether it's 38052 or 38049, I don't care.
Okay.
But, and pull the fees out if you're, whichever language you're using, and make sure they're down the bottom right in B. Well, it's A, actually. It's not B.
They are redundant, yeah. Say 38049, it's a lot closer to what we're looking for.
I think so. I think
I
53 could
think
probably
so.
get stricken, and it could just rework 49. That'd be easier and cleaner.
Got it.
So maybe I'm being particular, and I could see an argument either way, but so we call it Appendix A and reference right under the title, it's a connection fee schedule. Everywhere else we talk about the rate schedule that was approved, but it's not Schedule A, it's Appendix A. And I don't know if we
We'll make it all the
care
same.
that we're using
No,
different languages, but
It should be.
I feel like we call it a schedule
Schedule?
most places. So should it be Schedule A, Schedule B?
Yeah.
Yes.
Versus, I mean, the insurance could be Appendix A, but I think fees is schedule. If it's a fee schedule and it's just in a schedule, then maybe it's Schedule A and Appendix A, but consistent language at least.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
I would lean towards scheduling general.
Okay.
This definitions, by the way, doesn't have bullets or numbers.
Just wanted to.
It just
wanted
like
to point
popped
that
out right as soon as I looked at
Yeah.
it after thinking about it too much in the other one.
It is much cleaner.
So remove the bullets in the other.
I think for next time you want to see just a clean, in the definition section, a clean version without numbering, at least on the definition titles.
Yep.
The sub's fine, and then see how that looks.
Yeah.
I think it'd be better to do it as a clean because it's just a block change, and we'll be able to read it and see the readability of it better.
Do
That
you want
way.
me going forward to keep giving them to you both red line and clean,
I mean,
or just clean?
Personally, I don't need the red line at this point. I think I've gone back and forth and seen the two of them. I think we should retain the red line for future conversation if it ever comes up.
well, you're maintaining a full red line from start to finish because
Correct.
we'll have a start and end state red
Right.
line versions, right?
So if anybody wants
But
to see everything that you changed,
You've also been doing incremental acceptance, so we have a clean version with a period in time red lines, right?
right?
So are we good to accept all the red lines at this point and then only have new for next time?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Yes.
personally prefer the red line unless it's grammatical.
Okay.
Or even then just to call out that we can see it was where it was and know it was there, but
If I give you both, you only have to use the version you want.
I know. But it's
It
more
just
work.
adds extra pages to your packet,
I'll
but
say it
you can scroll
feels
past.
like more work for you somehow.
Yeah,
It's hitting
exactly.
save twice. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that much extra work.
Okay.
You just have to
It's
remember to
that
do it.
cumulative effect of carpal tunnel.
Okay, I'll fix those.
You have anything else for it?
I don't believe I did you? No. Oh, actually, I say that. And it jumped out at me in the clean version, which is why I normally don't look at that closely. Where did it go? Bear with me one One second. Oh, Article 4, 38012D, copper and plastic lines. There was a very specific plastic line type. I was anticipating that it would be called out.
Blue CTS.
Yeah, because who knows what changes in 10 years, and there's there's thousands of different plastics out there in pipes. So
What's it again? Blue
Blue CTS.
CTS.
So that would be my only recommendation, is that we are very explicit. Copper is copper. That's pretty clear, but
Yep.
I will make that correction.
that's all I had. Did you have anything else?
Bring it back for a fourth.
You got
Yep.
it.
No feedback. I know it's out to council, but we haven't had anything yet.
I did not send
Oh, no.
these revisions that you looked at tonight to council yet.
Okay.
So I will make this next round of revisions, follow back up with council and send the product where we are today. If they get back to me before I get to them, I will incorporate their feedback into that draft.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just maintain it as two separate documents until we put them back together.
If you get it before you send them a new one, we can always review that next time and send them a fresh
Sure.
copy after, rather than the small changes tonight. I don't feel like we did enough to bother having him review another if he already gives you feedback
Got it.
before he sees this.
Okay.
Unless you guys feel differently.
Nope.
Okay.
Agreed.
So we reviewed, it doesn't cost anything.
Exactly. I don't feel like there's enough there to
Not
update him
really.
if he's already
Yeah.
done it, so.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on water regs? No? So we'll see a mostly clean copy next time with
Yes,
a
sir.
few changes this time. From this time. And so we have unanticipated business for you, sir. LSP services, immediate response action activities for through fiscal 26 for the Maple Ave landfill and the DEP release tracking. So you want to give us the brief version, Pete, and then we'll dive into this one.
It's basically the breakdown and the cost for for the option of double poet system to be installed, if that's the route that we're going. And it's been broken down for FY25 and FY26 out of the landfill account.
So you said if that's the route we're going, is that your recommendation, Pete?
I believe we have to offer it.
And is there sufficient funds in that account?
I believe there is. No?
Not in FY25. You and the FinCom have met previously about this issue and have agreed to use the reserve fund transfer to mitigate some of these costs. Just add to what Pete just explained. This is the recommendation from your engineers. If you were to say the industry standard would be to recommend going in this direction with the system, to what I believe Pete was trying to communicate. We think we should offer it to the property owner. Obviously, we can't force the property owner to accept it. So before we offer it to them, we were coming to you all to make sure that we could proceed. If they don't agree to install the system, though, I think we need to have a conversation between you all and the property owner about what the path is going forward. To date, we've been providing water.
We're having a conversation about what is a tenable, longer-term solution
Right.
that meets DEP requirements, their needs, and
Right.
is tenable by the town.
Yeah. So I was speaking with Pete a little bit before the meeting started about this. I had some questions on it, and my thought is the current method that we're using is not the long-term solution of hand delivering the small bottles of water.
Well, not that small, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree, it's
Yeah.
not.
But hand delivering those, on a cadence, not whatever, however frequent that is not long-term solution.
I
Whether
feel
or
like
not,
that's a lot more plastics, and that's what started this all. But maybe
Yeah,
that's just
um,
something about that. is-
there's the
You'd say, well.
finding a water service company
Yep.
as like the baseline of if they're not open to this system, the Polish system being installed for whatever reason, because there is, as we were talking about it, there is some, I don't want to say intrusiveness, but there is some entrance into the home on a regular cadence, quarterly testing for the first year, biannual testing for year 2 and maybe 3, and then tapering it down over the years to make sure it's all functioning the way it should be, and monitoring the filters and everything with it. The homeowner might not want all of that going on, and the other option would be, these are the two options. We can either do a water service, or we can install this, and if we're okay with offering, or we need to offer it to them, I believe.
I think we have to. I think the first decision is this, are we good with this? Is this the primary recommendation? It sounds like the industry standard, and it sounds like it is. And DEP's, preferred solution. So are we good with offering that if the response from that is it's not preferred by the homeowner, or they don't want to do that, then I think we have to come back to what, better define what else is out there for options.
I think defining
very
that-
clearly, and then
I think
having
defining
that
that,
meeting with them after.
well, I was going to say defining that before the meeting. And saying
Before this
these-
meeting?
These are the two options. There is this one that we're offering, which is the system that is recommended, that's the industry standard, and we're more than willing to pay for it and put it in, that's the way it goes. And here's all that comes with it. If you choose not to opt into that, and you don't want that in your home, the other alternative is this. And we have that laid out. And here is the second, those are the two alternatives. And they both check the boxes of what is satisfactory, what we can do. I don't want to see our staff have to continue to drive cases and cases of water and hand deliver them to the residents. Their service is out there. I think we give them the full package of, these are the two options. Which one is preferable to you? And one would be a water service. We'd prefer that we put the system in, that it gets monitored, and that it's a long-term solution, that is, it's a capital improvement to your home, but it remedies the issue long-term. The alternative, if they're not willing to, is here's a water service with the 5-gallon jugs that gets delivered to your home, and you have drinking water forever as long as it's delivered on time.
I'm not the homeowner, but it seemed to me that the first option would be far less intrusive.
After the initial, yeah.
Yeah, there's
I
going to be
agree.
an initial, show up and do some retesting and stuff, but
Well, and
So, go on.
ongoing, there's still sampling and collection, so we would continue to do that work unless they denied access.
yeah, I noticed in the reading that
waived.
one of them said no, they didn't want us to come back in for the.
but we already do some sampling. They already have at least traditionally allowed some sampling every year.
They did until this last year, they discontinued
Right.
it, and they send a waiver saying they discontinued it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just mean in some ways,
Right.
some sampling is not a new thing.
Right.
Whether they wish to discontinue it or not,
Right, there will always be some sort of a sampling and testing to verify that
program,
the
yeah,
unit is
regardless
working.
of this
function
PFAS
properly.
issue with this one property, right?
What I would say in terms of this proposal from Ty and Bond, I would alter the acceptance line to make it clear with a few contingencies. One, subject to FY26 appropriation. If it's not approved at town meeting, by law, we can't fund it, so I would make that note. But two, subject to the agreement by the property owner that we can do this work.
Right.
If they decline, then we're not proceeding.
Right.
Correct.
So I would make those two conditional changes.
Have we used any of the reserve fund yet in 25?
Only on this.
So a substantial balance still there.
The first part was 23,000, I think you used.
That we used?
I believe it is.
Hmm.
That's a $50,000 reserve fund, so
Yep.
this would use up a significant part of the remaining balance. But I haven't seen any other requests come forward yet for your consideration.
Not that I want to add it either, and we could always do it in a special if we needed to. I was going to say we could do a transfer from retained earnings too if we had to. But, so cost-wise, I mean, the scope and work with the amendments that Brian noted, to what you were saying, Scott, do we need them to be involved in any of that portion of defining or presenting the options, including a service instead of the poet system? Or kind of a question to the group, I guess. Like, who is proposing the system to them? You, or
I think-
Ty and Bond together,
I think
or
we
are
would
they
do it
supporting
with
us?
time
Yeah, we
bond,
could-
correct.
Okay. So I don't think, Pete, correct us, if we're wrong, but I don't think Ty and Bond needs to help define a service, that water service that's in lieu of. I believe we've looked a little bit into that already, so we have some ideas on what's out there.
Right.
But we do need that to be defined, maybe not by them, but by you to, be prepared to present as part of the options.
Yeah, I mean, outside of
that,
this, outside of this document, a second document that is sort of the memorandum to the homeowner that says, you have option one, preferred option of the town is this one.
right,
Ty and Bond can speak
which
to
will,
that
in detail, yeah.
in detail. And then option two, in lieu of that, is an ongoing water, program.
Okay.
And those are the two options. And those are laid out at this, because, it's one thing to say, no, we don't want that option, we want, and then it opens up this whole world of what are all the other options out there for fixing it? And I think this has been an ongoing thing that we could rectify pretty easily at this point.
So what we were talking about too earlier, if you want there to be an option, if
So,
a couple of years down the road they decide,
Well, anybody could always come back. So the idea
propose
was
a change.
if they opt to not do this program and they say
We'll
we're,
just do a
we're
water
satisfied
service."
with the 5-gallon buckets, just deliver them on a regular cadence. 2 years goes by and they're like, maybe that was the wrong choice. Can we? They can petition the town to say, is there still a window of opportunity to relook at this?
Sure, I think there's no
Right.
reason they can't bring it forward. It doesn't mean that the water commissioners at that time will or won't entertain it as as an option to switch to. But I think there'll be a recurring cost there, right? So there's some recurring cost to this even after the initial outlay, which is the primary cost. But either way, so I think we understand that. And whatever group is at that time, right, is going to have the same data in front of them to weigh and see if they're interested in proceeding in a different direction. I think there's always an option in the future to say that, but it's not like in a week or two. It's like
right,
years down the road would be my only caveat. Like you're making a decision for at least the next year or two, right? It's not something we expect to revisit in 3 months if you choose whichever path you choose.
Correct.
I think if you choose the poet system, there's not another option. If we outlay that, would you all agree?
Yeah.
If we outlay and it's option one, it's the poet system, then that is the solution for as long as it is serving its purpose. If there's some failure there, obviously they'll have to be dealt with at that time, but
right.
there's not a choice to revisit a bottled water service instead after the poet's installed.
Right.
It's only the other way, right? If
Okay.
water service is chosen, there's nothing that precludes the homeowner from asking the commissioners to review, the poet system or the then current, option again in the future, some years down the road, not right away. And so are we all in agreement that those are the options that we're prepared and able to offer on a sustainable basis?
Yes.
So we'll work on that.
Okay. So you need that, and you need engagement here
Is that
for tie and bond,
correct?
hence the unanticipated need it now business. Anything else on the contract on the tie and bond side?
Other than you wanted to put a caveat on the acceptance.
Yeah.
Funds.
FY25 you all could do this year.
Right,
But
but there's a
FY26
contingency of approval at town meeting for
Yes.
FY26 and also acceptance of the installation of the public system by the homeowner.
Correct. Correct.
So as long as both of those get worked into that, then we can sign it and say that yes, and they have to understand we're not gonna pay you $27,000 if the homeowner says, no, we don't want it.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. There'll be some sampling and some services
Sure.
that still apply,
There'll be a
but not
fee for,
but not in
fee
full.
for service.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if you all are willing to just work those two conditions into your motion, then that gives me what I need to respond back to Time Bond and say it's up to given these two conditions.
Want a motion?
What
or you
is
got
this?
it?
Do you got it? I can if you don't have anything off the top of your head. I'm
trying
kind
to work up mine.
of. What are we
Go ahead.
calling this? LLSP services
Yeah.
for IRA activities through FY26? Okay.
Yeah, that's.
I'll make a motion. We engage tie and bond for LSP services for IRA activities through fiscal year 26 related to the Maple Avenue landfill, Mass DEP RTN 1-50082. Am I going slow enough? I know you're taking them on the fly.
I'm gonna probably have to go back and rewatch this. That's okay.
Okay. Let me get to the rest to finish this motion here. Sorry.
Page 6.
27 on it.
For an amount in FY25 not to exceed 18,000, and an amount in FY26 contingent upon approval of funding at town meeting of an amount not to exceed 9,100. A majority of those costs in both fiscal years contingent upon the homeowner's acceptance of the POET system option as defined here. Understanding some fees for sampling and such would still apply regardless of the homeowner decision.
Period. Second.
Okay.
I was waiting for that pause to make sure that
Yeah, I was like,
and yes,
I
Brian's gonna have to
better
go back
close
and watch that one
close
to
out
get all
some
the
of it, but
yeah, there's a lot
does
to
that
tease
incorporate enough in that there to be
And to
clear?
authorize Brian to execute?
Are you okay with me signing it?
Well, look, a great amendment you just added there. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, you retract
Amend
your
it,
second.
retract it. You can
Okay.
amend it.
Amended to add authorize Brian Smith, town administrator, to sign any and all documents accordingly.
I'll second it again.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Anything else? Good? From your side? I think we're good from our side.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Jumping back to the road opening regs.
Mm-hmm.
Review and discuss. Third read. If you need us to take a moment for you to collect the notes, Brian, you're fine to
We're
do
good.
that anytime too, as we go through this. So we've updated 3471 as we discussed, added 76 for the underground utility piece, referencing 220 CMR 126. And you are looking to see if that reference should be in a different section.
One, do you think that addresses the concern?
Okay.
I guess in terms of the regulation that we're writing, is it sufficiently described and specifically referring it to that CMR? Does that get at what we're trying to accomplish?
That's the question.
That's it's a two-parter.
Okay.
My recollection of my reading of the CMR was that it didn't always require conduits. Those are tools, or when appropriate, they are the mediums that would make sense for an installation. The way I wrote the regulation was to require the conduit or the channel. Chaseway, I think, is the phrasing that was used. So if that's something you don't want to require, you could always remove that. But I'm concerned about these underground utilities just being in a dirt ditch without any form of protection.
I'm not a fan of direct bury.
Can we regulate that?
It's your roadway.
It seems with some utilities there's some rights that seem to extend to the center of the earth and beyond anything we have
Agreed.
with certain services and utilities and I'm not saying in this case necessarily, but it's been interesting with
So
rail and other things that have rights that far exceed what we may be able to regulate in some cases.
So I was reflecting, and I want to ask council this question, if you're okay with it. When we were working on the utility pole process back in July, August, and revamping our understanding of your discretion, because once you issue the utility pole permissions, it's in perpetuity. Until the utility wants to remove it, you can't revoke the license once it's given. But you're giving it in the town right away, so it's the people's property, right? It's the only process that I'm aware of that it's like almost a permanent giving,
Yeah.
right? But the language refers to underground conduits. We don't have many examples of that currently in Erving. We have one subdivision that has those underground utilities. Care Drive probably is our second that we're starting to build out, right? And so I think from that standpoint, you all can set reasonable conditions on the setting of utility poles and conduits.
Okay.
They may argue back that they don't think that's reasonable,
Fair.
but I
fair.
think we could at least start with asking our council if they think that there's precedent to be able to make a request like that. And if not, where's the tempering of that language?
Yeah, I pose the question not because we necessarily know the answer, but to at least ensure that if it is the direction we'd like to go, then we are having council consider it accordingly and give us that feedback, at least to the extent that they have knowledge or there's precedent. And from there,
Right.
we can set it, they can complain, there's a process behind that, and they have some ultimate higher authorities as well as we do, beyond or in addition to what we may decide or change at that time. So I tend to agree with you. I mean, medium voltage direct bury seems odd to me. I deal with it in my day job. I've at least come across it and been aware of it, and had to have some private laid utilities that were going to cross or be near, so it's interesting. Allowed and best practice is maybe not the same. So I would say we vie for what we believe it should be and then go from there. So does this meet what we would like it to be, whether we can or would have success at requiring it or not? Or regardless of that.
Yeah, I'm just rereading some of the sections in 220, in the 126, subsection 32, and it's all the underground conduit systems. just making sure that it really hits. That's the one piece that really matters for what we're talking about.
Right.
Um,
Did you see the section where it talks about the horizontal and vertical spaces between, say,
Yes.
another underground utility, and there's
Mhm.
a 12-inch preference, but the two parties can agree to something less? And I don't even know what that
Is that in
agreement
any
looks like.
Any direction, 360 degrees?
I had questions about that.
Is that horizontally, vertically?
Right.
I know in R76 it says additional protection when they're in close proximity, but I would define it, that's vague.
Right.
I would not leave it undefined, especially if the reg is vague too.
That's my concern.
I would say we require additional protection within X proximity, if that's what we want. Otherwise, we leave it vague and may never get it.
Right.
Yeah, I think we restrict it and put in the regs what we're looking for, and we look
Or
for
we can
counsel.
reference them and then further. Is that what
Yeah.
you're thinking? Like
And then-
after that?
Yeah.
What is additional protection defined as?
Right.
So it sounds like we got work to do in 76. If
Yeah.
we want to ensure certain level of build out and protections are in place, right?
And if that's an area where, because we only have a few instances, mostly town-owned facilities have these underground utilities, maybe this is something where we would want council to offer recommended language. They may have clients in other communities that have more robust regulations when it comes to this because of their setup.
Right. I mean, I have no concerns. I don't know if either you do about leaning into what's out there already before we try to ad hoc define this to more
Agreed.
granularity. So, and I agree with you. The more populated and dense and city area that you're in, the more this stuff applies a lot.
And I tried
And
to
there's a
just,
lot more vertical or density of other things too.
those regulations our regulations were written from the standpoint, I believe, the people who wrote them before us, and when we approached these road regs, I think we were coming from a similar vantage point, that the only two underground utilities are largely going to be water and wastewater, which we control. That's not always true in every community, but in Erving that is true, right? So I think that there's more because they're sort of, departments in kind that they can work together to come up with a solution. I think we take the lens that any underground utility, say a gas company want to come through, or a telecommunications company, or any of those utilities that want underground conduits, what lens would they be reading our regs through? Where would they see something that applied to them? So that's where I was trying to come from. So any type of structure could be conduits, but it may be handholds, it may be manholes, it may be a whole infrastructure that we really didn't address. So I was trying to at least bring up references. I don't know how detailed we need to get.
Well, and does, quote, service line underground utilities count if they tie in to the pole, which is in the right of way?
It's a good question.
I have underground.
Yeah, there's so
And I
there's
mean,
so many
the pole
nuances.
is in the right of way in theory, right? Because
Yeah.
it's permitted in the right of way,
Yep.
and it goes to the pole and up. So, and it doesn't mean it should or shouldn't. I mean,
Right.
maybe they should, right? Because we don't want that few feet of it being something either that's an issue. So I don't think that's a bad thing, but
Right.
I just
And it may
be
be
looking at
something
it from all angles, as you're saying.
we may just want the conduit in our layout. And whether, in your example, you have a private property owner who has
Sure.
underground service, they may be okay with direct bury on their property.
Right.
But
But
at
at
least
least
until it
stubbed
leaves
from
the
the
town
pole to-
layout,
yeah.
it's stubbed in conduit.
Although I don't know if utility would do it then.
I don't know.
I don't think they will, but
Right.
who knows? So more
Interesting.
to come on that. It's not simple.
No.
I mean, looking at the overall reg, we really are down to section 76. And the rest of the changes,
I had one, something in 71, but generally, yeah,
yeah.
for you, yeah.
So the rest is seeming like we're getting to where you wanted to go?
Yes.
Okay.
What did you have
Is
in
there
70?
anything else in the others before 71? You had none?
No.
And 76, obviously, outstanding.
Yeah.
but- Jim, any other on your side?
No, sir.
You said
71, so restoration area, cold plain, overlay, excavation, 7 feet from either side of the trench, minimum width of 15 foot, which is 7.5 from the trench each way.
From the center of the trench, but an average, the smallest trench would be a 1 foot. It's 7 foot from the edge.
Well, what is the minimum? So this is, I think it's vague. So maybe I'll start over. I think there's some vagueness in there that
Okay.
we didn't mean to, or we didn't intend it to exist. So it's 7 foot of planing and overlay from each edge of the trench.
Yeah.
What is the minimum width referred to?
From the totality of what they're putting in for overlay. So if it's 15 feet, so it's 7 foot, a 1 foot trench, because that's the
So
minimum
it's not
trench.
15 foot of overlay. Because you have a 1 foot trench. It's 14 foot of overlay. If you have a 6 foot trench, it's 14 foot of overlay and a 6 foot trench. Guess what does the 15 mean? The 15 doesn't feel like it. Either it means how much is cold planed in totality, or it means the minimum distance that must be overlaid even if there's a 6-inch trench.
Correct.
Is that what you read it as?
Yeah.
So
I was reading it.
There's
with
gotta be a
it starts
15
at
foot-
15 minimum no matter what. And then if your
Okay.
trench gets bigger, then it's 7 feet from the edge of either trench, or of the side of the trench.
So the edge of the cold plane and overlay, edge to edge, is no less than 15 feet. And
Yes.
there's at least 7 feet from the trench. I feel like it's just confusing. Do we care about those 6 inches if it's a narrow trench or whatever, 3 inches really? I mean, we're not expecting an under a foot
No.
trench, so you're really just getting your 7
Correct.
feet,
The
right?
bucket they're going to get is
And
the
the 7
minimum
feet
is
is
a
what we're
12-inch
looking
bucket.
for.
That's what we're looking for.
So can we just do away with the 15 foot?
Yeah,
Because there's no minimum? It's 7 feet from the edge?
from the edge.
In the direction of travel was the other thing I would say, because then it says from curb to curb. So I'm like, from the trench to curb? And I know I'm being particular
No,
because I don't
No,
do
it
this
is.
every day, but I think we're mixing different dimensions and directions and it's not clear.
So I'm
No,
striking
you-
15-foot minimum.
You're right, because it's a lens of somebody that's reading it, not, we understand what our intent is, but they don't, so.
Right. And I don't know what they
Yes.
do every day, so they may read it the way we want them to every day because this is what they do. But I don't do this, so to
Or
me,
they may not.
I'm like, oh, I can go 7 feet, and if I hit the curb, or it was 15 feet, I don't have to go to the curbs, or so that's where I'm rereading this and going. So I'm saying we strike, we go from 7 foot from each side of the trench
Okay.
in the direction of travel. Right, so it's 7 feet north and south on a north-south. It is, we strike with a minimum width of 15 feet. And we keep from curb to curb. I mean, it's really meant to be like the edge of the paved surface, right? In the cross direction.
That's correct. Superintendent McCrory is recommending.
Curb to curb is the that's the terminology. Doesn't have to
Right,
actually
whether
be
there's a curb or not.
doesn't mean
right?
that there's a
and,
curb.
And it's clear that's cross
the end
direction,
is- yeah,
right?
it's
And
cross-
so I'm okay with that. As
curb
long
to
as
curb
it's
means both travel
known.
lanes from edge to edge of paved
Right.
surface.
Right, whether that's curb or the
Or-
end of
or
pavement.
grass,
yeah,
or,
okay,
you know,
Or
dirt, whatever.
gravel, or
Right. Yeah. Whatever it is. It's
Okay.
the edge of the
hard pack.
pavement.
Okay.
So Superintendent McCrory is just suggesting if it read that it would be 7 feet from each cut in the direction of travel. Maybe the additional clarification.
Yeah, the
So-
curb to curb gets them side to side,
Right.
both travel
Right,
lanes.
but the overlay of the
The 7 feet.
excavated area, 7 feet, and it's not spanning, I guess, really, is it? Well, maybe it is spanning 7 feet from
The edge of
the each edge of the cut, is what
Yes.
you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
in the direction of travel.
Yes.
That works for me.
It just reminded me
It's
that
okay.
occasionally we have a one-way.
Say that again. Stop it.
We don't have many, but we have a few.
Well, that hopefully minimizes the direction of travel question.
Sure. It's still
Well, that's,
7 feet. Either side. Oh, you're saying they
from
only.
each, well, it's from each edge of the trench, I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I-
so it should
in
just
the
be from
lane of,
each-
I don't think.
each edge of the-
Listen, it's 7 feet. The only difference is, do we ever have the trench cut in the direction of travel? This is always going to be a cross cut.
I mean, it can be diagonal.
In theory, but it's never going to run up the road. I mean, that's going to be a whole different
That would, I mean, that would be like if you're replacing a water line. Or
right,
something
and
like
that's
that.
I mean, the more we talk about it, the worse it gets. I mean,
No, the reason-
I
the
only
reason-
say that because, like, a diagonal, is it going to have a 7-foot diagonal cold plain patch? Do we really want that either?
no, but that's where the language that the superintendent can increase. That.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So he can go from 7 foot from the highest point up here to 7 foot from the lowest down here, and if that
Right.
spans 12 feet,
Absolutely.
then that's 26 feet. That's
Right.
it is
Doesn't
what
matter.
It is. Yeah,
It's 7
Yeah.
from here,
It's a
and
straight
7
cut
from there, and I
across.
don't care what else
Yeah,
is going on.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I just don't know if it is. It's 7 feet from the edge of the trench, curb to curb.
Yeah.
That's the language that will get you there.
Okay, from each edge of the trench,
7 feet from each edge of the trench, curb to curb.
from curb to curb. Okay.
Okay.
I think the minimum width out of there by itself is a
Yeah.
big part of what I didn't make a lot of sense.
Yep.
Okay.
And
And I don't know about upon inspection. To me, it's just the highway superintendent may require.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be before, it could be during, it could be after, right? Is there any reason that that's
No,
Needs
I
to be
was
upon
I was reading
inspection?
that as well as it just may require, not upon inspection. Because that implies that there's like this formal process that he's going to be out there and
well? And he
When-
may, but he may say it sooner, and he may say it at any point
So just remove the reference to inspection.
upon
Yeah.
inspection.
Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
I believe
Less
it's
is
71
more.
now.
three
Sometimes.
sentences. That took a lot of conversation for 3 sentences.
Okay,
Got it.
then I'm good.
Moving
that.
on.
Review of the FY26 operating and capital budget requests, anticipated revenues, and proposed plan. Which really are as discussed last meeting.
Believe I captured all the changes that you and the FinCom and Capital Plan Committee made.
I don't remember having excess, but okay.
No, yeah.
22, does that sound right? I didn't.
Hold on. Local receipts.
It was 580, and then there was an agreement to adjust based on the locked-in.
Right,
interest
but
rates.
it says increased anticipated local receipts by 40,000.
Right. Oh, There
Yeah,
you
you
go.
put it up 60,000.
that's the catch. There you go.
Yeah, I was trying to get the numbers. I'm like, it seems like there's excess in there that, because we should have been down to like 2,000.
That's it.
All right,
So when I wrote over that, I accidentally.
you put six.
Yeah,
You put
okay,
640 instead of
okay,
620.
that's what I'm
620.
missing. He
Yeah.
put 640, but it's really
620,
620
there you go.
because we only added 40,
Correct.
not 60.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay,
I knew the
that's why
numbers
the
didn't work.
22 wasn't working for me. I thought it was less. So,
it was less.
Okay,
It was
got
only
it, got it.
2,000.
and your narrative is correct.
Correct. And then
So
it was just a
The
typo.
result is now a balance of 2,343.
Correct.
That sounds correct.
Yikes.
I mean, that's about what we were
I mean,
the
we
year
are
before.
usually sub 15,000
Yeah.
if we're close. And really, I mean, we know that plus or minus that's going to land in overlay
Correct.
to help offset those costs. And if it was more, it would probably land in capital. So,
Mhm.
okay,
Understand.
good as amended.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's our budget
Excellent.
draft.
Now the ATM.
Now the ATM. Review of draft ATM warrant.
So I just before this meeting sent you an updated one.
Yep.
The only change is the capital stabilization article in 19 was trying to do a FY25 transaction and allow for the raise in appropriation in FY26. And the advice of the town accountant and the town clerk was to separate the two into two separate articles. So I've done that, and as a result, renumbered all the subsequent articles. And that is what was emailed over. So no substantive change other than breaking out the actions in 2 fiscal years.
And that.
Your headings all pull through on the table of contents, right? So if they're right in the articles, they're right in the table.
One more time with the question.
Your article headings pull into the table of contents.
Yes.
So if they're right on the article, they're right in the table.
Yes. And if they're wrong
Is-
in the
If they're wrong in
index-
one, they're wrong in both.
correct.
If I only read them in one and they're right, then they're right. That's really
That's
where I was
correct.
going with that.
Yes.
Okay. And did we fix our page one, right?
Oh, good question.
There is a typo on page one.
We did which page one?
Do we still have two?
There is
oh,
still
we
2
do.
page ones.
Oh, no.
I'm trying to fix the linking.
The first page one. 1-1.
1-1.
The 2 planning board member.
Planning board members for 3 years.
Oh, that's right. Well, it was 1 for 3 years and 1 for 1 or 2. I can't remember.
But we corrected it to be 2, so now it's not plural, so we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Are you on page 1, the first one?
Yes.
Under the positions, the planning board member,
Right hand column.
top of the right-hand column, second row, second line, 2 planning board members, members.
Got it. See it. Thank you.
Word will hate your commas forever, so we need too many of them.
Council
okay.
added them all back in.
I'm sure,
But yes, Word
because
does
they're
not
more
like them.
Old English than they are grammatical, I expect. whether you've got it yet or not. We're working on the page number, right? You're
Yeah, I'll
fixing
get
it or
that fixed.
working on
It says
yeah.
it's linked, so I don't know why it's doing that.
Okay. We don't need to see it corrected. We just will know you're going to. So.
Yep. And then the town accountant sent over just one more language recommendation for the articles to create the capital stabilization. So when you get to those, let me know and I'll read what she wrote here.
In Article 4,
Article 4.
last sentence before the table, second to last line there. It says fiscal 24 invoices from the identified line items. Is it 4? The identified line items as listed below. For the purpose of paying FY24 invoices from the, or for the identified line items. It's semantics probably, but.
Maybe we just reword that. Thinking an older version of this, where we used this language before, may have included line items, like actual accounting line items.
I think he's talking about the
Oh,
difference
yes.
between from or for, though.
No, but he's saying it had like account numbers in front.
Oh,
so
that's
it was
right.
from an account number.
From would have made sense.
Yes.
Yeah,
But I see what
But
you're
this
saying.
is just a list. It's not an account, so it's.
So I
purpose
think
of
we would just say
for
that.
So from the,
below
or for,
FY24
for the
invoices below.
identified items as listed below.
Yeah, for the purpose of paying fiscal 24 invoices listed below. I don't think you
That's
need
all. I was
ads.
going to say
Just
wipe
go to
all of
listed.
that,
Yeah, just
Yeah.
go from invoices to listed, right?
or as listed, either way.
Yeah.
Yep,
There
Okay.
you go.
good catch.
And we got the 4/5, just to make it fun. So in Article 5, where it's an FY26 operating budget article to enter into balance agreements for fiscal 25. Is that supposed to be fiscal 26, right?
Good catch. I thought I got them all, but we got 3
You read
fiscal
'em enough
years we're working
times and
on this.
It's
No.
and you're dealing with 3 because you get 24 annual report and 25 prior bills
Right.
and 26 expenditures and
We'll read it again tonight, and there's a chance we'll get to town floor
And town
say,
floor,
we have a
there'll be
friendly amendment.
3 more.
We missed one of them.
It all starts blurring. You read it enough times.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I try not to read it for a while and then come back.
Remind me again, are we just leaving in Article 11, are we leaving the transfer to capital stabilization as just a placeholder so that it's historically there?
Just to get us used to it.
Which one was that?
It's the one that's, we're transferring $0.
article? Okay.
It's
Got it.
just a placeholder, but just so that people are familiarized with seeing it in that article.
Yeah, it probably does seem a little silly.
It does. People are going to question why you have a line item to transfer $0.
And that one, that's in Article 12.
11.
11 should be the
Oh, wait a minute.
water.
No, I'm sorry. It's 12. It's
okay.
wastewater.
They read almost the same.
Yeah.
Is it just me or in 7 elected official compensation, and I'm not looking at an older one, the school committee numbers, just an odd number? Has it been that? I thought we set all those as a pretty flat rate when we did all the stipends.
Mm-mm. That one is an odd number.
The assessors is too.
Mm-hmm. We fixed all the, God, that was 3-4 years ago. There was an adjustment made. I think there was a town meeting floor adjustment for library trustee one year. And all of the smaller boards and commissions were set to $1,000 each. But school committee, select board, board of assessors was never touched. Remember you started drafting the whole policy on how to address it?
Sure,
And the whole thing got
okay.
tabled.
All right. I thought we got to at least whole numbers, not
Yeah.
single dollars. That was what threw me most, was
Yeah,
like
that
the
was-
03 and the 81.
I was still back in Article 7, and I scanned through it 3 or 4 times before I found, I'm like, where is the 50 cents? And I finally found it, but that's another one.
Okay. Again, I'm not comparing it to last year at the moment, so. And with the exception of a couple of them that are on tables, these are flat from year over year.
These are all flat from year over year. The
Yep.
only adjustment I made were to the 3 positions who have day hours at town hall. And they're on this compensation schedule. So I just took what the adjustment on the table is going to be with the 2% and factored that in.
Okay. And we did not factor the 2% into all the stipended positions. It's only in the
Correct.
3-hour
So I didn't adjust water.
office hour.
Right. I do think that the last time you looked at all of those was probably 3-4 years ago, so that is probably
it's-
something
it's
that for FY27
It's definitely
it
due
should.
for next time, so we didn't do it. I think we said we thought they were good for at least 3. It's probably been 4 to 5 now, I think.
Agreed.
Although we've made changes on the table so many times, I'm not sure now.
Yeah, no, these have largely been the same for
3
I wanna say-
plus.
we were meeting under tense when you last made the changes, so 2020, 2021. It's been a while.
Okay.
Must be riveting TV.
This is like the grammatical review phase.
Yeah,
It's not
and,
very fun.
and I've read
Where
it.
is the carrot?
I
in
just
Article
want to read
7?
it.
It's
One more
on
time.
the school committee one.
Not there. Is
Should
it?
be.
It's not there.
Which one is it?
What are you asking for, Jake?
I think you're right. That's where it belongs, but it's not. It's a single asterisk.
That is supposed to be. Good catch.
In Article 7, the asterisk, double asterisk, and caret footnotes to where the funding is coming from that's funding those articles, because it's not in the article itself. It's coming from another article.
Good catch.
Omnibus water,
Mm.
elementary school. There's 3 references, and there's only 2 of the footnote references actually exist in the table.
It now exists. Good catch.
Thank you. I don't want to try to explain where we should put a caret instead of an asterisk or a star. That would be a rough amendment.
I was trying to think of how creative we could get, but
I mean, there are. You could get a diamond. You could
right.
I'd say you could use numbers, but don't use numbers.
I know.
1, 2, 3.
I'm
ampersand.
not going there.
Uh-huh. That's good.
Coming up.
Does this presentation work? The table we had before was much wider, and so obviously putting it into a column format took a little finessing, but I think it's easy to read. I hope it's easy to read.
I don't think it's any more difficult for sure. I don't know. I think
It's fine.
yeah, this is the second year we've done it, right? So we did it
Yes.
in a special
Yep.
or we did it
Yep.
annual last year.
Yeah, we did this last year.
In the article information on 7, your caret and spacing to the word funding is different than the other two, too.
Corrected.
Thank you. We can jump to wherever you guys have stuff, too. I'm just kind of spotting through it one more time, but we can jump down to the articles if you guys are all set, too.
The only thing from 19 that was parsed out and became 20 was the 100 rather.
Correct. So when I first sent it to you, that was represented in line 1 as a raise and appropriation. So I just extracted that same information, moved into a new Article 20. The heading to 19 was adjusted to clarify it's FY25. And then the new title for the new Article 20 says FY26.
Thank you.
Is Article 9,
Back to hold on. Let's scroll.
it's fine.
12, 9. Yes.
Article information. Second sentence, development of this budget is a best estimation. I mean, I guess that's fine, but it just reads funny to me. It's just an estimation. I mean, I guess you can call it a best one, but
Okay.
we're really not. We're using now. I mean, if you want to say best estimation, I don't know that we were before, but we're just using last year actual. Or last year actual.
Do you want me to change it to read based
Maybe
on
more
FY24?
accurate to say that. I don't know what you guys think, but to say that you know, this budget is based on last year's actual number of students who attend, rather than who may attend, but it's based on the actual costs of attendance last year, and well, actually, I guess it's not last year; it's FY24, right?
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so yeah, this budget is based on the costs of actual attendance in FY24. Actual decisions aren't known and may require supplemental based on actual attendance, because we don't know it.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the memo, we talk about that.
Our memo, yes, but I mean in the
That's what I'm
warrant,
saying,
like,
is
just
putting
being
that in the
clarity.
article, putting that additional caveat in the article information.
So on the top of the next page, it does say we may need supplemental funding. Is that the part you're talking about? Is making sure it's in there, or the methodology piece?
We always put that disclaimer in the article.
Right.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah,
With
just changing it from the
changing
development.
estimation to
Yeah,
to
to
the actual.
FY24 actuals.
Okay.
Okay, ain't that change?
So in 10, we call it the school committee stipend, and it's the same amount as the school committee stipends in 8 and 7.
Mm-hmm. It's another one of those things you all have not addressed or discussed in a very, very long time.
Okay, but we don't list it as a elected because it's not elected,
It's not elected.
but it's just tied to the same.
Though the question has come up again as to who's authorized to appoint these positions. It's the town moderator, so who sets that rate? We do it through this budget setting process, but is the work equal to what the school committee members are doing? So all of
Gotcha.
those questions come up. So it is probably something that should be discussed next year.
Funny, we started having that conversation in 2010.
Did you?
Yeah. when,
When you were in the school committee?
Jared and I were both on the school committee and also serving as the secondary liaison. Weren't
To the
getting the second stipend.
I was going to say
You can only
double,
get
you can't
one. We didn't double dip on the stipend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We did it, just for free, but it was,
Right.
it called into question the entire process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I may recommend, like, maybe we put FCTS in front of that or something, just so it doesn't look like it's identical to the other ones on line 1 in that table, but it's not the end of the world, but just some clarity that I know in the article information it refers to it as the technical school committee representative, but it's not a school committee member, it's actually a representative, right? It's an Erving representative, right?
Well, they're a voting member.
Of the technical schools
Yeah.
committee?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Gil Montague is
Oh,
not.
was they sit as a voting, okay.
Correct. Gil
And Gil,
Montague,
they
we
don't.
don't have a vote.
Yeah,
But
correct.
Gil, they don't, okay,
Correct.
all right, I'm mixing those. All right, I'm not gonna,
so you want
I'm not gonna
FCTS?
recommend anything, you can leave it be, or,
Yeah.
yeah, it's too,
The article's
there's
about
too
the
much more
technical-
there to do
Yep.
to
Okay.
to get to that point, so. I'm all set.
So Article 11 had just a small math error in it, so that was corrected. And it was on the revenue side. So then we adjusted on the expenditure side the amount that would be transferred into capital stabilization.
What did you adjust, 2 to 3?
Excuse me, one more time, sorry.
What was the adjustment?
So the revenues that
Yep.
were already listed, as you can see, none of those have changed. The subtotal on the estimated revenues was just off. That's been corrected. So it needs to balance on the expenditure side, and we're not proposing changing any of our expenditures. So what I adjusted was the transfer into stabilization. Now both match.
Okay.
Have you all made it to Article 19?
I'm on it now.
Okay. So Article 19 is the one that you asked me to expand that grid. Add the free cash so it reads in order as the article presented it. Hopefully that's clear enough. So then I renumbered all the other subsequent line items. And there was an expenditure out of Article 210112 that reduced that line item's capacity by $500. So I carried that change through.
So that was 500 lower than it had originally been.
Correct.
So okay, got it.
So I subtotaled both sections and then gave at the bottom of the chart the total of all the activity, which matches the written description. Does that capture what you were trying to achieve?
I believe that's what I asked for, and that
Okay.
looks, thank you.
Of course.
Maybe I had a typo, but I did not get the 1153.
Where are we? 19?
Yeah. And the reason I ask is the article information only changed by 500, but you also added the free cash line.
Right. Should be 1089.
So I just want to make sure that I went through and added it, and I was like, it doesn't.
108 now or 106?
106 now. Good catches. And that is correct in the written description.
So when you pull out the 1,089,000 for free cash,
Should be 1,069,000.
your subtotal of 84,000, 468 and 96 cents is correct.
Which subtotal is correct? The 84, 468, 86?
If you're excluding the 1,089,000.
It's 1,069,000. So in the grid it was a typo, it was at 8, but up in the written description of the article it was 169.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
that is a typo. It was a good catch.
because
If you
that's the capital expenditure, not the free cash deposit. 1089.
got it.
1089 is the capital expenditure. 1069 was the free cash deposit. It's not quite the same. It's very close,
But
but it's confusing.
the written is correct. It's in that grid on line 1.
Yeah.
But if you make that correction, now it equals $1,153,468.96. And that matches the balance.
And that's our all lines 1 through 13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You guys are good tonight.
We had a few minutes to really pour over it.
you see any value into shading the alternating lines in a grid article like that? Is that just more busy than anything else?
You did it in the revolving funds.
I've done it in a few other places. Is that helpful for the reader?
I think Article 15 is a good example of it.
So I should do it?
I'm just pointing it out for the other
Okay.
members to kind of compare it to 16. 15, I'm sorry, 15, where the 9 line item expenditure for capital has slight
Right.
shading between them.
Yeah.
It's a little easier to read myself, but
Yeah, it's also in,
and this one got even smaller because you got accounts and lines.
Right. So I can do that.
18 as well.
It'll be consistent with all the rest of the charts.
I just don't want the voters to lose their place.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit hard to follow without it, so it's
Okay.
definitely helpful.
While you all are reading, I'll format. In Article 20, the new Article 20, is it sufficient to just have the fiscal year listed in the title, or do you want it in the body of the article as well? I know we used to have former language that included start dates, like July 1, and it got specific. And if you missed one of those, then we had an issue. So we
Yeah.
stopped using that language.
The only thing, I don't think it needs to be in the article. But
Okay.
the only thing I noticed is that it's the only article that you added that doesn't have an article information.
How did I manage to do that?
Because you just added it 5 minutes before the meeting started?
That's probably the reason. I'm gonna grab that right now.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Good catch.
That's not mathing for me. Okay, did we sort out? I'm still back on 19. 19. That math.
Good math. I did
The
it
1153.
Yeah, I did it 3 times because I couldn't get it to add. With the 106, with the one.
Oh yeah, I'm still reading it. Yeah, I'm still reading as it was. No, you're good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm
the 20,000 threw me off a couple of different times.
Yeah, okay, I'm better.
Yeah.
I'm better. I'm still reading it as 1089, even though it's wrong, and I know it's wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I literally just finished recalculating that one again to make sure that
Yeah.
it's the
I
1153.
did it.
Okay, I did it
Riveting
twice.
stuff, but I wanted to make sure it was right before we put it to print.
Yep. So far, everything that we've noted has not been different than our summary sheets. It's just typos and
Correct.
calculations in
Correct.
the warrant, right?
Correct.
I did want to come back to that question too.
Yes.
So 20 is the 100.
So I just add an article information that says approval of this article would raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 and no cents. Transfer the sum into capital stabilization fund for use on future capital projects that will require town meeting approval.
Mhm.
Good. Sufficient?
And that's because,
The approval
Majority
requirement?
vote.
Majority vote.
Correct.
oh, hold on. Is Article 19's title wrong? No, I guess it's not. That is a 25 because free cash is certified in 25, right? So it's-
Exactly.
Yeah,
July 1, you lose
yeah
it.
we lose it, so we can't wait to do it. It's got to be this year. Okay.
That's why.
And that's
Yeah,
why-
and that's why we separated 20. Yeah, the new
And that's why
20.
20 became 20.
Yep, because it's 20 and 26 money. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm back. I'm back to current.
Yeah.
The fiscal years are fun.
So,
So all of the other articles in the, I guess what I was going to say or what I was getting at was 21 does not specify a fiscal year.
The establishment of the
No,
stabilization
the
fund.
the opioid appropriation. All of our other appropriations, say like an FY26 appropriation, FY25 appropriation,
Okay.
from a consistency standpoint, I mean, we're appropriating it on July 1, so I guess it's a 26 appropriation. I know it's from capital, so.
But you want FY26 in that heading?
I mean, we did it with the capital projects for FY26, which again is coming out of capital stabilization monies there, so it's
Yeah.
not,
Mm-hmm.
it's tied to a time because we chose to, but not because it's required to, right? So I think from a consistency, I would put it in there.
You got it. It's changed. So moving into FY22.
FY22?
Or
How about Article 22?
Starting to feel like that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
there's
time.
only so much we can read these, and we're
Yep.
going to start seeing the same
my
stuff. So.
brain just froze when he said that.
Too.
What
Back
was
in
your
time.
question about the establishment and in 22?
So this is from the town accountant. She's suggesting that after the vote from adopting the chapter and section, which is how we start, then say vote to create the fund, which it does say that, to create a new special purpose stabilization fund to be known as. Then end the article with a period after the word system infrastructure. Oh,
Because we aren't adopting in
so she's
Dedicated?
saying
To
Or
adopt
okay.
the last
appropriating
paragraph
that part?
of said subsection 5B.
so we can get rid of subsection 5B.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
so
the dedicate and further appropriate piece.
right.
And then just, it's system infrastructure or take any other action right there, right?
Yeah, it should
Yeah.
remain a comma.
Mhm. So you're striking from the end of infrastructure, the comma there, to the further appropriation.
Right. So now we'll read related to maintenance and capital improvements on the water department and the associated water system infrastructure, or take any other action relative thereto.
Makes sense.
And then we would do the exact same thing in 23.
In the article information in 22.
I made that change in 23. Okay, yes.
Approval of the article, sentence fine. To date, this has been handled. So maybe just to be clear, to date, capital, what did I say? To date, improvements and ongoing maintenance have been handled with
Yeah,
retained
instead of
earnings
this.
instead of this, because then it says this again right after that.
Right. To be very
Retained earnings
specific.
in the water enterprise funds, but that process, because it's a prior, not the one we're talking about now. It's the one we used to do. So it's, but that process means those funds are unavailable to voters for several months each year. And while retained earnings are or until retained earnings are recertified or certified again. And then approval of this article does not address the expenditure of funds. I know that was a bunch of edits in that language, so. Do you want me to reread that? Or did you
I
get
don't know
what I
if
was?
you should reread it, or if I should be rereading what I have now. After I
Maybe
changed it.
reread after the first sentence.
Okay, so now it reads, to date, improvements and ongoing maintenance have been handled with retained earnings in the Water Enterprise Fund. Nuts. But this process means that funds are unavailable to the voters for several months each year until retained earnings are certified again.
And after but, it's that, not this, right? So it should be
Got it.
water enterprise funds, but that process means those funds are unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Read it one more time, that sentence.
To date, improvements and ongoing maintenance have been handled with retained earnings in the Water Enterprise Fund. But that process means those funds are unavailable to the voters for several months each year until retained earnings are certified again.
And then the very next sentence, it says this approval. I would just change it consistent, like approval of this article
Yeah.
does not address the expenditure of water system stabilization funds. I could use those, but those funds, but I think it's better to describe it out.
Yeah, and then I would also, even the last one where it says that will require, I mean, you could expand that out too.
Yeah,
So
expenditure of wastewater system stabilization funds will require future town meeting approval.
Yeah, it's lengthy, but it's clearer.
And it is new, so I just want
Mhm.
to be, and I have a feeling we probably want to maybe mimic that over in 24. 23, I'm sorry, 23. Because we have some of the same kind of language. It's basically the same language, right?
They
Just for
started out
wastewater?
as the same, correct? You can copy and paste them
I'm
and
sure
change
they were
it.
similar, yeah.
Change it from
Yeah, I
Water
think
to
so. It's just,
wastewater?
yeah, it's water to wastewater, right?
Mm-hmm.
Water treatment and distribution, wastewater treatment and collection. It's slight nuance, but it's basically this. At least the to date, and from there down, it's just a matter of updating it from wastewater to water. Good through 23.
Got that done.
Is 24 have its own heading just because the fund is different?
Correct.
Because we're calling out each
Mm-hmm.
funding source, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we didn't put FY26 in that because it has its own section that listed as FY26.
Right, where the stabilization ones do not because they're multi-year.
Right.
Or various years. Okay. Same with the capital.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense to me.
Brian, are we missing something on the rapid entry system? It just looks funny with the underscore after
We're
the.
missing the
It's the chapter.
numbering.
Yeah.
So we can change that. I left it blank because it hadn't been assigned yet. At town meeting floor, it's very possible that general code will have already recommended what chapter to assign it, and we could make a floor amendment to give it that section. But the language authorizes the town clerk to make that assignment and
True.
and order the sections.
Okay.
So I just left it to call out the fact that chapter hasn't been assigned.
Okay.
But if that's confusing, we probably should change
No, it's, leave it
No.
like it is.
it. Okay.
I think it's easy to explain at least.
Mhm.
Okay.
Did it push you to another page?
Well, I have to accept all those red changes and strikes, so that may suck everything back onto the other page.
Oh, okay, yeah. The only other thing was, did you get your page numbering to work?
So it keeps saying it's linked, so that I'm going to have to play around just a little bit more with.
Okay, we don't have to do that this evening.
I will try to get that fixed for you.
If you can override the signature page to the right number, you can reassemble it if the signature page has a number. I don't think,
Oh, that makes sense. Yep.
Do it in reverse.
well, if he just overrides the last page that we sign, and then he has to fix that later and reprint it with the in-between pages correctly numbered, it will be fine. But if he can't fix one, then the signature page will be one different than it's supposed to be.
Yep.
Which is not the end of the world.
I don't have any
Anything
others.
else?
Nope.
27, not touching that.
Nope.
17,
Oh, excuse me.
25. Yeah.
You want a motion?
Yeah, if you're good, I'm good. You're good? Okay.
Let's do a motion to approve the annual town meeting warrant for Wednesday, May 14th as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Would be the longest we've spent on the final
Yeah.
draft amendment that had no monetary changes.
None. It was all,
But it's good.
yeah.
We have new articles and new things happening there, so. Review of the surplus equipment across senior center, second read.
No concerns.
No concerns.
IT may check if there was a planned potential need for that somewhere else that we don't recall, but we can always do that even if it is surplus, we can keep it.
Correct.
But we'll have that for next meeting if there's a change there, but. Okay, carry it. Is that is the second read, because we talked about
Yep.
it last week?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was right at the end, and I probably just, with
Yep.
everything else.
Yep.
Review and discuss intermunicipal agreement for North Feeling, Mass. North Feeling, Mass, yeah. The agreement was reviewed by town council, and he indicated there was no concerns with the edits and changes that had been incorporated since his first review, which were significant. I mean, there was a lot of sections and
Mhm.
cleanup that we did,
Mhm.
but anything that either of you have any concerns or anything with?
None.
Okay. I appreciate language to vote on it, but I would recommend that we don't, because we may hold a meeting next week to review any changes from the other three towns,
Okay.
because the same kind of discussion is happening at each of the four towns for the IMA. And so if any of those towns have any concerns they do want to bring back, we have a tentative meeting, I believe, next Thursday, the 14th.
Do you want a
And-
motion to authorize approval pending no new changes from other member towns? So we're not sitting on it for a month?
Because if you all meet,
If nobody comes back
Well-
in the other towns and changes anything, and this language is the way it is,
We meet on 28th, right?
you have the authorization to
Right.
sign it at any
Right.
time, rather than waiting until the 28th.
And do we want other towns to wonder, well, what's Erving doing? Or would Are they among the thousands that are watching?
No, they're all
They are the
watching. They're,
thousands now.
they're the 10,000th
And
person.
now I'm like, where is that 10 to BMS meeting? What day is it? Jeez.
Some towns are already heading to town meeting, and I know that there was an interest in having this ratified in advance of town meeting. I don't know about those specific towns, but
Okay. I don't recall if. Hold on. Let me just find that really quick because I'm surprised I'm not seeing it here.
I mean,
Yeah,
regardless,
this
we're not,
is-
if there's no changes from any of the other, no recommended changes.
Yeah, I mean that's fine if you guys want to. I
And
mean,
there's
worst
nothing
case
co-
we just don't do it and we bring it back. Like we don't sign. I don't sign it or.
Right,
no,
if they
sure,
come back
yeah.
with a bunch of changes and they say we
Yeah,
want you to,
we'll
then we have
revisit.
to come back and revisit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Barring that, it
Yep.
is as presented this evening, and then you can authorize, we authorize
That's
you to sign
totally
it.
fine.
All right, so.
And you're right. They do want to have them for, but I think May is the first one. It's the earliest for everybody.
in that group.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think there's any April because we wanted to wrap it for May town meetings.
Okay.
And we figured we'd come back, I thought it was next Thursday, and have a week to bring it back. We can bring it back on the 28th for
Okay,
us, for
if we need
example,
to.
and other towns to be able to have that last opportunity to kind of review and finalize. But I'm good with it. Yes, thank you.
Do you want that a
Yeah, well,
contingency language after the date or prior to it?
I'd say right at the very end, to execute the agreement on behalf of Town of Irving.
Condition on the adoption by the other member towns?
It's not even the adoption, it's just.
Conditional on no
no changes.
substantial changes to, or no changes of substance to the
No
IMA, right?
substantive changes?
Yeah, I mean, if it's grammatical or something, we don't care, but yeah.
I will make a motion to enter into the intermunicipal agreement for emergency medical services among the towns of Northfield, Gill, Erving, and Berniston for a term of 3 years, commencing on July 1, 2025, and to authorize Jacob Smith, Select Board Chair, to execute the agreement on behalf of Erving, contingent upon no substantive changes by other member towns.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. And then in terms of, there is also the advisory committee. So we don't necessarily have to determine that tonight, but just to be aware of that. As part of that, IMA will contain an advisory committee with 2 representatives from each member town.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, there's some assumption to some degree that the fire chief or appropriate member, from each town is likely, along with a board member or designee of the board, will be the contingent there, as the IMA states. So, Northfields, it'll probably be the EMS director, or the EMS chief, as well as a member. But the other towns, it's likely the fire chief and a member. Okay. There was unfortunate news about the building. It sounds like those discussions and negotiations around that have fallen through unexpectedly. I don't know anything further, but I know that was an update. So I believe Northfield will continue to look for, what a future home will be and what that'll look like and where that'll be. So obviously still in need, still something they need to do to help support this for themselves and the rest of us. So we'll keep everybody posted as we know more about that. I'm sure it'll be a conversation on our next task force meeting. So, but at the moment, that's the latest. So
Okay.
I don't know where that legislation's at. I'm assuming that may be discontinued, but I'll leave that to Northfield's leading that. So they'll identify that accordingly. All right. Review meeting minutes from March 3rd.
Motion to approve meeting minutes from March 3rd, 2025.
Second?
Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Review and approval of the treasury warrant.
No, you can.
We have it.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's just 2 in there.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I've got the right amounts. Because I don't have them, because they just came out.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the payroll warrant 20, aggregate amount of $215,488.37. And the payroll benefits warrant 25, in the aggregate amount of $35,135.39.
Seconds.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right, I believe that is all we have for this evening. The plan at this point, unless we have other urgent business that comes up, would be to have our next meeting on the 28th. Between holidays and such, and give us a little bit of a break with all the budget season we've been doing. And then we will have annual town meeting on the 14th, so on the 28th, I figure, or sometime between then and the 14th. Between the 28th and the 14th, or on the 28th, we can determine whether we'll have a meeting on the 12th, based on like kind of what business is.
And I will
like
be
we do often.
unavailable May 19th and 26th,
Okay,
both Mondays.
okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't.
Just letting you know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, well, as we get closer, I don't know if I'll be available for both either, but we can schedule around that. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't think that'll be an issue. So we'll just determine kind of what we're doing leading up to town meeting evening, whether we do a meeting that night as well or separately,
Sounds
like
good.
we normally do. The week of the 21st, I will be generally unavailable. I'll be around, but generally unavailable. So we'll let the town departments know, and if something critical comes up and they need to reach out or can't reach out, can't get a hold of me, to reach out to one of you just to be.
Sounds
aware.
good.
And that's all I have. Do you have anything else?
That was it.
Okay. With that, motion to adjourn at 9:05.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.